Okay, you've got a wedding coming up where you've been asked to give a toast, or an important meeting to present at that you're afraid it's not going to go well. Maybe you've got a job interview coming up and you want to make sure you crush it, but you're afraid you're going to have a shaky voice and the person's going to be able to tell. That used to be me. A fear of public speaking is incredibly common, and it's also common for people to claim, oh no, that doesn't bother me. And then they get up in front of a group of people and you watch them stammer and stutter and who knows. So it is very common. And I remember those days. I was so miserable every time I had to present, or then when I finished it, it was just, okay, now I'm going to have to present again in another week at some meeting. And it was awful. Just thinking about making a phone call where I was going to have to call somebody and explain for 2 minutes who I was and what I needed from them. I could literally see the sweat forming on my palm. I remember after one presentation that I must have been so nervous that my boss took me aside and asked me, "Are you okay?" And I couldn't even look him in the eye to respond. But that was the old me. Now I do public speaking all the time and I pretty much enjoy it. In 2017, I competed at a state level and won first place in a public speaking competition. I travel to high schools and talk about engineering. Just a few days ago, I was at Open Sauce in front of hundreds of people with a microphone, and I wasn't worried at all about being nervous. Probably the toughest speaking event that I had was last summer when I emceed for my own father's funeral. I was extremely proud that I was able to do that and super glad that I had spent all this time learning to conquer my fear of public speaking so that I could do that. So let me assure you, you can do this. You can get over your fear of public speaking. I have coached a bunch of people on how to give good speeches and get over whatever it is that they're dealing with very positive feedback on what I've been able to do for them. I could probably start a career coaching people, but that's not what I want to do with my life. I want to go make more big YouTube videos on doing crazy engineering projects and teaching people. So instead, I'm just making this video to put this stuff out there so that anybody that wants to benefit from it can. And a heads up, not all of these are going to resonate with everyone the first time through. Hopefully at least one or two of them like really ring true with you, like, oh man, that's a really good tip, that's going to help me. But you can also expect that if you come back and watch this again in another month, you might have a couple others strike you a little bit differently because you're a little further along in your journey. So do periodically come back and just run through this and see how it hits you. So number one, lower your goal to simple participation. A lot of us have gotten to the point where we believe, we've been picked on or somebody's been poking fun at us or something over the years. And we've gotten to the point where, like, you know what, if I can just be perfect, then nobody can criticize me. And the problem with that is you practice something. Well, first off, you practice it until you have it at perfection and you start sounding like a robot reading a piece of paper. I've watched people speak where they practice something and they didn't have a piece of paper in front of them, but they'd practiced it so much it sounded like they were actually reading something on the inside of their glasses. So you don't want to be perfect, but even if you do try, as soon as you screw up one little word in that script that you practiced, you go, crud, I failed, I did something wrong. And truth is, you probably said it more naturally than you originally typed it out, and it sounded better to the crowd, but inside your head, you're going nuts that you've messed up all of a sudden and the whole thing's ruined. But if our only goal is to participate, then the only way we can fail is if we don't even try. Number two, change your inner dialogue about speaking. We all have something that we're telling ourselves, is some negative self-talk that, oh, I don't know, how is the speech going to go? And one of the quickest ways to combat that is to overpower it with something positive. So I used to psych myself up before speeches or before a speech contest with this just like I was going to go into a boxing match where I'm going to dominate, I'm going to crush this, just and it actually helps. It can get you into that positive frame of mind and sort of push those negative thoughts out of your mind. I remember one competition about a week ahead of time, I started just daily or multiple times a day telling myself the bigger the room, the bigger the crowd, the more people I can affect at once and not have to give this speech more than once. And I just hammered that home that the bigger the room, the bigger the crowd, the better off I was going to be. And then I didn't know what the room was going to be, and I walked in and it turned out it was a really big room with a really high ceiling. And I surprised myself right when I walked in and saw that. This thought went through my mind of like, oh, good. And I just, the moment I thought that, I couldn't believe it. But I'd conditioned myself to think that about the room. And then it happened, and it just automatically put me in a more confident mood. Now, long term, you want to get to a place where you don't have to do that. But in the short term, it really, really helps. Number 3, being authentic. We should all strive to get to a point where we could have the most embarrassing moments of our life up on a billboard next to a highway and have it not bother us. I know that's really difficult, but if you could get to that place, just imagine how much easier it would be to stand up in front of a group and speak. Now, everyone has trauma and embarrassing things in their past that they would prefer just didn't happen. But every great speaker that I know has just learned to take that baggage and just kind of set it to the side, acknowledge that everyone has it, and just go ahead and go forward and do the speaking job without thinking about it. Number 4, try literally getting in touch with your environment where you're going to speak. I remember when I had a speaking competition at the international level, and I literally walked around the room, and it was just kind of, I didn't make it obvious, but I was kind of brushing my hand up against the wall, touching the backs of some of the chairs, especially like when I could see in the wall where there'd been a dent somewhere from people moving stuff and they'd had to fix it and they didn't do a great job. It was like, oh, look at this imperfection over here. And by the time I circled back around the room to where the rest of the competitors, the other 10 competitors, were getting ready, the lady who ended up winning it, I got like second place. She looked at me and said, "You are so calm." And yeah, just getting back in touch with reality rather than being trapped in your head with whatever messages you're telling yourself can be a huge help to just bring you back down to where everybody else is. Number 5, plan on screwing up twice. Seriously, this gets back to that perfection thing where we're trying to be perfect, trying to armor up with, I think that's a Brene Brown thing, trying to armor up with perfection. But if you plan on screwing up twice, it breaks that facade of perfection. And then when you do screw up, it's like, okay, I planned on this. It's not a big deal. And you can just try to minimize it down to, okay, I'm going to try not to screw up more than 2 things. And for me, even when I practiced something to where I just had it nailed, the day of the presentation or the competition, whatever it was, I'd be nervous enough that, yeah, I would screw up once or twice. But just having that mindset where I know I'm going to screw up at least twice, man, it's like releasing a pressure valve. It's like, okay, I don't have to be perfect. I'm going to get up there and be a real human being. It really does help. Number 6, change your dialogue around past failures. So if you had a bad public speaking experience or something where you were embarrassed in front of a bunch of people, bring the wisdom of today back to those moments in your mind and realize those were learning experiences. You're a human being. Nobody would expect you to get up and speak your first time and have everything be flawless. I mean, that would be weird. So just acknowledging that those were learning experiences, it's all part of being human. Don't focus on those as something negative, and you'll find that too sort of releasing the pressure valve about getting up, and it'll help change that dialogue about your next public speaking experience. If you liked those tips, I have lots more, but here's the deal. I am a struggling science YouTuber, and even though I have over 500,000 subscribers at this point, sometimes I still spend more making a video than I ever make in ad revenue and sponsorships. And I just got back from a get-together with a bunch of other successful YouTubers and learned that one of the ways that I can improve my success on YouTube is to increase the number of patrons I have on Patreon. So if you'd like to get more tips on public speaking, I have a video even longer than this one on Patreon. So you just need to go to patreon.com/QuintBuilds and become a patron. Not only will you get access to a bunch more tips on dealing with public speaking anxiety, you'll be supporting a science YouTuber who does all kinds of cool projects to help educate and inspire people to do more science and engineering. If you're not familiar with my channel, I've done all kinds of cool stuff. I charged a smartphone with hydropower off my rain gutters, and I built a computer-controlled knife throwing machine. If you don't think that's cool, I don't know what to say. So hopefully I'll see you on Patreon, and regardless, good luck with your public speaking journey. Thanks for watching.